This is Dave with Fanatic Fly Fishing. Today we're tying the Tongariro Treat, a fly I developed over the last couple years utilizing the colors of the Yoshi Bugger. So stick around and I'll show you how to tie this incredible fly. Here's the materials that you'll be needing. Don't worry, it looks tough, but we'll walk through it step by step and indicate the materials as we go. First, we're going to start off with a partridge intruder shank, 25 mils in the vise. And we're using Semperfli Classic Wax thread in a 3/0. You want the really heavy thread on this because it's necessary for the dubbing loops, so your thread doesn't break when we're doing the dubbing loop twists. Now, lay a nice base of thread, and then you're going to come in with your intruder wire and your hook. And I lay this on a 45, and that way it will keep the hook riding up and it won't get any twists in there. I want to adjust a little bit, so pull back, wrap it some more, and then I bring all the wire to the top so I can feed it through the eyes. Hopefully you're better at this than I am because I missed the first time. But feed it through, wrap it underneath, and lock it down. This will keep it steady. I then use my vise pawn to keep the hooks from hooking myself throughout the tying process. Obviously, I need a new pair of dice because these aren't doing very good for me. So off to miter 10 to pick those up. Keep wrapping and lay a real nice thread base down. And then we're going to add the eyes. So we'll take a couple wraps around the eye in both directions. We're not locking it down at this point because we'll be doing that later. So check the eyes and then give it a little bit of a shoulder to make sure it doesn't twist on us. And then take the thread up and down, and we're going to lay a bit of super glue to keep everything in place. Now we're going to tie in some red wire right on the top. This is going to keep the hackle from coming loose with the toothy fish. So go ahead and wind it down. Now we're going to add some dubbing for the body. I'm using some claret ice dub. You could use any other color or style of dubbing you like. I'm using claret because it matches the color scheme that we're going with. And I'm looking for a nice thin body here, so I prefer to put on dubbing a little at a time than overdo it. You'll see that I get that nice and tight, and as it kind of gets towards the end, you give it a couple turns and it'll kind of cinch it back up and get that really nice body you want. When you're done, you're going to end up with about 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch left. And then we're going to tie in our saddle hackle. I like to give it a couple ties, make sure it's nice and tight in there. And then you can see I can do real tight turns right at the front and then space them out. This will help give the materials more of a shoulder to sit on and help it swim better. So hackle pliers are a good tip here. Now we're going to take the wire, and you're going to see I'm going to wiggle it back and forth, and this helps break it up so it doesn't trap as many hackle fibers on the way back up. And I'll give it a couple turns in that blank area just to make sure it's really secure. Go ahead and helicopter it off. Now I'm going to bring the thread back right in front of the hackle, and we're going to tie in our first set of legs. I like to come underneath and put it on top, and then go ahead and grab it with my hand, put it in the position that I want, and I loosely wrap it back. This will keep the legs in position and kind of out of your way. So next I'm going to take the legs and kind of just get them out of my way. You'll see I'll fight with these throughout the rest of the video. And now I'm going to make a dubbing loop. It's really important to seal off the bottom of your loop by going around it a couple times. Otherwise, the loop will expand and the material won't stick in. So now we're going to take some brown ice dub and we're going to stack it. We're going to pull it apart to get the ends all lined up. And then once we have that, cut it in half because we don't really need all of that. So go ahead and place it on your desk. And I have a card here that shows the center line of where the dubbing loop will be. And you see I'll put it down and I'll kind of spread it out. And it's about 1 inch long or 25 millimeters long, with about a 60-30 split. Next, I'm going to take some Semperflash baitfish wing, and this is a really chaotic material. It's got a lot of crinkles, so it has a lot of strength and tends to have a springy effect to it. So I want this to be over about 1 inch, 1.25 inches long, And I fan it out with my hand, and then I'll lay it down on top of the ice dub and kind of push it out as well. You want to spread it about over the whole length of the ice dub. Now I'm going to do the same thing with some Predator wrap in barred UV. Once again, I fan it out, press it down with my finger. You're going to have some stray material, and then spread it out. If you have greasy fingers like I do, they tend to stick. So just use your scissors or something to push down. And you notice I have about a 60-40 split on the Predator wrap and the baitfish wing. So now I'm going to take some UV ice dub, kind of put it over top. And this is the other half of the bread of the sandwich. The ice dub will really combine together and hold all the materials in place. And some Semperfli scud dubbing will act as the dubbing ball, which will give a little bit of a UV effect in the loop. So now that we have all of that sorted, let's unwind our dubbing loop and go ahead and give it a good wax with dubbing wax. This is incredibly important. This will help the material stick. So I'm going to take the scud dubbing first, and I'm going to put it right into the top, about 50-50, and slide it up where I want it. You can see I have it in my finger, and it's not going anywhere. You know, with the ice dub, it really binds that together. As you can see, it doesn't really fall out. The materials don't fall out. So now slide that in and put it to where you want in the loop. And I take my finger and I'll put it underneath, holding that dubbing loop closed. And this allows me to go ahead and pick out all the materials. So you really want to get those Predator fibers and the baitfish wing nice and straight. As you can see, I'm separating them here using my bodkin, or you can use your whip finishing tool as well. Then you add your dubbing spinner on the thread and give it a spin while pinching, and then slide your fingers down. You can use some flat billed scissors like these Renomed ones to keep your legs and other materials from getting sucked up in your dubbing loop. As you can see, it's a nice thick dubbing loop. And now we want to pick this out again. We want to get this down to about the thickness of the thread. So I'll just go ahead and continually pick this out. And you'll pull out some fibers, and that's not a big deal. We have enough in there where you can lose some fibers and still be okay. And if your dubbing loop slips off of your dubbing spinner, it's not a big deal. Just take the thread. It's not going anywhere, and that wax is really holding it together. And then grab some hackle pliers and clip them to the back, and you're back off to the races. You can see I spent a lot of time making sure I got that as thin as possible. Now I'm going to hit it with some Velcro and a toothbrush and just pull out those fibers, and you can see how thin that got, that dubbing loop. So now we're going to take some water and we're going to find a neutral point, and we're going to stroke the fibers back. This will help contain it and make wrapping a lot easier, and it just overall tames the fibers. So make sure you use a bunch of water. After these fibers dry, they'll spring back. And you can see how chaotic this can get, and if you don't wet your fingers, wrapping it would be even more difficult. So as I wrap, I pull the fibers back, keep that leg out of the way, and you'll see that as I drop it, you'll see that I wrap right in front of the previous one, not on top of it. I pull up a little bit to make sure I can get in there and get really tight wraps. This is important to get the spring effect of all these materials working together and create that bugginess and that shoulder that we'll need the marabou to ride on to give the nice profile. Go ahead and tie off your dubbing loop. Don't worry about the fibers. They're a little crazy at this point. Just snip it off and then stroke your fibers back. Try to capture them all and give a couple wraps right at the base. You don't actually go over in the fibers. You just go right at the base. Now take your toothbrush and you're going to brush all the fibers forward. This really helps them set up and lets them spring back as they dry. So you do tend to do a lot of grooming with these flies, but it's worth it in the end. So go ahead and adjust your legs as needed. And I take a little hair clip. These things are invaluable to go ahead and hold them. And then you lightly brush it back, and you can start to see the shape that the shoulder is taking and how the hackle supports that. We're going to add some flash. We're going to use this Ripple Ice Fibers, and we're going to put it right over the top, and then we're going to pinch it up and pull it and put it right over the back. This is also going to act as a little bit of a wing, but mostly to add some flash and some color to the flies. Now we're going to do the same thing with a pair of orange rubber legs from Semperfli, and just go ahead and pull them back and use your one hand to keep them orientated while you tie them in. And then you'll see me struggle with some clips here and trying to keep these legs out of the way. That's just the fun part of dealing with rubber legs, is keeping them in place, especially when you're doing a dubbing loop. So now we're going to do a dubbing loop again and go ahead and close that off like we talked about before. Now we're going to take some Claret Blood Quill Marabou. And you'll see that the ones I have all have really thick stems, and they're not good for wrapping. So what I like to do is just put them in a dubbing loop. So I take some clamps and go ahead and fan the feather out, clamp it down on one side. I don't want this to be really bulky. This is more to add some color and a little bit of movement. Clip away your fibers and check the length. And you'll see this is a little bit too long. So I'm going to check it there. That looks about right. I want this to just kind of encapsulate the back end of the fly. So add some dubbing wax and add your marabou into the dubbing loop. And if you blow it, it'll straighten all the fibers out. This will shrink up a little bit as we spin it. So we're right at the right length. So go ahead and give it a spin. Use your scissors to keep the fibers from twisting up in it, and give it another spin, and you can see that fiber gets twisted up, and you just pull it out of the way. Now you can go ahead and come and pick out the fibers, and be a little gentle with this. I like the Velcro, and you can just dab it on and pull it off, and that'll pull the fibers out. And just like the shoulder, we're going to use some water to pull back and tame the fibers. It'll really help wrap in. You'll see how the fibers really collapse. They'll dry back out and they'll become nice and fuller. So don't fret as you're wrapping these forward and looking and thinking that there's no coverage on the marabou. There's plenty of coverage. It's just when they're wet, they bind together, and we'll just need to comb that out. So no problem there. And then once you have that wrapped, go ahead and tie it off. And now you'll see that I'm doing some figure 8 wraps at the head, and now I'm really locking in the dumbbell eyes. I told you earlier that we were gonna do that later on, so here we are doing it. Now once again, just go ahead and groom your fly, brush forward, incorporate all the fibers together, and then brush back. What you're really trying to do is get everything together, and you'll see me struggling again with the legs again. I fast forward this because you didn't need a minute of that, of me struggling. Now we're going to add some flash for the final wing, and I take my thread in front of the eyes, bring the flash under the head, and then figure 8 it on. This really locks into place, and this will also keep the flash on both sides. And I wanted to cut this overall about the length of the fly. The last step, or second to last step, is we're going to add some guinea fowl. Once again, go ahead and figure 8 it in, really locking those eyes in. And that's why we didn't do it earlier, because we didn't want to build up too much bulk. Go ahead and clip that little bit of excess, and then stroke the fibers back. And I like to re-wrap over the stem so you lock that feather in place. Stroke the fibers back with your fingers and give it a few wraps. And with this being so close to the dumbbell eyes, the feather is kind of going to go a little crazy on you, and that's okay. Just keep wrapping, stroke the fibers back. We'll take care of this in the next step. Lock that stem in place. You know, this is in front of the dumbbell eyes. Just get it sorted, and then you come back in and, you know, once again figure 8 it. This helps really secure everything down, keeps the eyes secure. And you're going to get a few stragglers. It's not the end of the world. We can cut them off or stroke them back. But what I'm going to do is just go ahead and finish this in front of the eyes, clip off, and You can see it started to unravel a little bit there, but I hadn't noticed it yet. That's no big deal. We'll go ahead and cut the legs, cut them at different lengths. Orange one's a little bit shorter, and the bone colored one's a little bit longer. This will make sure that they're not influencing each other in the current. So brush forward, once again, really incorporate all those materials together. And you'll see this is really coming together nicely. The marabou hasn't quite dried out yet, but you can still see it has a nice shoulder. So now I'm gonna add a little bit of bone dry UV resin in there, and I'm putting it right along the stem. This is gonna do a couple things. It's gonna help kind of contain those loose fibers, and it's also gonna build a little bit of strength into the whole front of the assembly. You can see how it helps keep and lays the fibers back. And I don't really like the white thread, so what I'm gonna do is add a little head of some microglend, which is a flashy material from Semperfli. Really cool, great for pertagon bodies. And this just adds a little bit of sparkle. But this step is just purely cosmetic. I don't think it really affects the fishability of fly. I like it, so if you wanna omit this step, have at it. Live your truth. Tie flies that you have confidence in, because if you have confidence in them, you'll definitely fish them better. So last step is let's seal that off with a little bit more bone dry. I like this stuff. It cures really hard, it cures really fast, and it doesn't have any tackiness to it. Hit it with the UV torch and let it set up. You can see the brightness in this fly. Just keep brushing this thing out. This helps all the fibers incorporate, helps that marabou dry a little bit too. And you'll see it's got the great nice shape that you want. There's a last little fiber, pull that out, and you have a very buggy fly. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and if you got any comments, please leave them below. It really helps me out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.